Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Thursday, the 14th day of April, 2022. Well, we got snow again last night. We got more than we did the other night, and so I don't know what's going on. We're in our first week of irrigation water, and so my husband's been irrigating all week. Today's our last day of it for the week. We hand it off to the neighbor tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. But we've lived here for 41 years, and we have never begun irrigation with snow on the ground. Never happened. So what the heck is happening? I don't even know. But wild weather is all over the country, and so wherever you are, I hope you're safe and warm and protected. And boy, this is just an odd time, isn't it? Lots of odd things happening. Well, let's see. Let's go ahead and go over the esoteric influences for today from the weekly post over on the blog at Stepping Aside. The web address over there is imsteppingaside.com. So if you want to go check that out, that'd be cool. And if this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you'll click subscribe and come back and join our little rune and tarot family here as we explore how runes and tarot meanings can influence our lives, give us something else to think about in terms of our perceptions about things, and hopefully help you make some better decisions but again, just give you something to think about, if nothing more. But today being the 14th, we have a 5 numerology for the day, which is freedom versus restriction. It also, the 5 indicates the pentagram, protection, innovation, and change. It can also indicate travel that would be involved in freedom versus restriction. Today's rune from the esoteric influences is Ingus or Ingwas, means the seed or DNA or inheritance, references male fertility, gardening, inclusion, grounding, and inner focus. It's the sudden release of energy, basically, into creation. The Geomancy rune, the below side of things today on the esoteric influences, is Pur, which is young boy or impulsivity or risk-oriented, or energetic, means energetic as well. The sun's in Aries, the moon is in Virgo until it travels into Libra at 1:46 p.m. my time here in the Pacific coast in Oregon. Well, I'm not on the coast, but that time, is it Pacific Daylight Time or some such thing? I guess that's going to change here at some point, or maybe we're all going to Pacific Daylight Time. I don't know. Or Daylight Savings Time. No, though that would be Daylight Savings Time is in the fall, isn't it? See, my mother used to explain all this to me, and so I always have to look to see what it all is. So anyway, because she passed in 96, I've just been sort of wandering ever since. But anyhow, the planetary governance today for those of you working magic is Jupiter. So you've been feeling the impact of new experiences over the course of the week, and you're still in the discovery phase of how to process it all. And it may be best to remain grounded and take a risk-averse approach until a clearer understanding is achieved. Rely on your intuition and allow a higher understanding to inform your choices. The inner growth you've been experiencing may be influencing others to explore their own path. This is a time where insights can be shared, but again, not at the expense of boundaries. Remain flexible and supportive of others, but be realistic in your expectations and in how you express yourself today. So let's get rid of this. We'll get that over there so I can see what I'm doing. And let's see. Oh, no. There we go. So let's go ahead and take a rune from the Elder Futhark bag. Now the runes, the two runes, the Elder Futhark rune and the Geomancy rune that I talk about in the Esoteric Influences post, that's done for the week. And that's not done for here during this reading, so I always do others. So let's take a look at the rune for the as above side of things. I view the Elder Futhark, I view runes as a language of spirit, basically. And here we have Gebo. Looks like an X. but what it means is balanced energy exchange. It's basically Kenaz in all directions, or the torch, or the light of spirit. And so it's bringing in that higher resonance into your interactions with other people, as opposed to ego types of things that are, you know, you wake up and you see that what's his name wants to buy Twitter. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? I don't know that I'll stay if that's the case. We'll be looking for another home to chat with people. Let's see what we have here. Oh, looks like conjunctio. Okay, conjunctio is about joining an agreement. This is conjunctio. Kind of looks like a little hourglass, doesn't it? You have passive principles for fire and earth, and then active principles for air and water. So basically, if you're looking at Gebo and conjunctio, then what you have really is a balanced exchange with other people in terms of agreement and coming together, unity, joining together. So having it's basically aligning very well. There's no stress between the two, in other words. So we'll see what the cards have to say, though, if that's going to follow suit, or if it's going to maybe take us in a little bit different direction. But it looks kind of like we're starting out anyway with the idea of a higher level of exchange or interchange with other people, expressing yourself in a way that's you know, less ego based and a little more based in higher awareness. I think that the discourse right now is volatile. I think that we're seeing a lot of really awful things being suggested on one side of the equation about people that aren't anything at all like that. You're seeing it from one particular media outlet is echoing all of it. I hesitate talking about it specifically. You either know what I'm talking about or you don't, but I hesitate giving too much life to that. You know, words matter, and if you are deciding that you're using hyperbole to characterize somebody in a way that is so not true, the damage that you do is horrible. And so I would hope that, you know, one way, if we wanted to look at the runes today in that regard, is, you know, bringing higher awareness into your perceptions here, and not falling for the manipulation that this most recent hyperbole and slander is causing. So, you know, elevating the discourse, basically, I think is and coming into a shared agreement and unity from that higher perspective with others, engaging on that level instead of this you know, oozing about on the surface, you know. It's horrible what's being said now. So we'll see. I think that ultimately that's going to backfire, as it should. But in the meantime, you know, they're putting people in dangerous positions, and there's threats. It's just really, it's like it's just circling the drain, basically. And we don't want to be there. It impacts everything. So again, you know, keep your exchanges with others lofty and high today, and come into unity and harmony from that standpoint, instead of coming into harmony over something that is so lower vibrational that it's just damaging. And you know, whereas it might cause problems for other people, it's really damaging the individual who's doing it the most. So oh, this is interesting. Well, we have, let's see, we have three different elements represented here. We have swords, which is the air element. We have cups, which is the water element. And we have wands, which is the fire element. So intellect, will, and emotions, or intellect, emotions, and will. But I think that maybe it aligns with what I was talking about. Here you have the Eight of Swords. Now, you can look at this card a variety of ways, but I prefer to look at it as either getting in the way of say you've gotten in the way of your own perceptions, and so you've had to and by in doing so, you know, the perceptions that surround you, they're all in a row and everything, but you feel surrounded by something that maybe is just, it's not working for you anymore. And so you close yourself off and you go within, you bind yourself. You know, that's one way of looking at it, because you're getting ready to let go of all of this, right? You go to the Nine of Swords and you see the guy sitting up in bed, and there's all the swords, you know, in alignment with one another, going horizontally. They're putting it all in a row, and it's the stuff of nightmares, but it began here. And you have the strength to turn your back on this stuff and go within and not be influenced by it anymore. That's why the blindfold and the binding there. That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is turning off the noise around you from other people. A lot of the perceptions that people have, all the comments people make that are just damaging, and so you're closing yourself off to it. You can look at it that way. But with Eight, you have the sense of strength here. It aligns with the Strength card, where you're taming the wild within. But here, we'll just see. We'll just kind of keep those in mind, and anything else you might have in mind. But the idea of your shutting down the noise, even if it's your own thoughts, even if it's your own perceptions, it doesn't have to be other people's stuff. Although, like I say, we've got a lot of really nasty stuff being put out into the universe here these days, and sometimes you just have to turn off the noise to be able to cope with all of it. So it could be that as well. But again, you could be bound by your own perceptions, basically. That could be another one, and you have to have the strength to see that and understand the dynamic that's involved there. But let's see further. Here we have the King of Cups. Now the King of Cups, again, the king's not looking at us. He's right there on the water, on his throne, just sort of floating about. Now, he can be kind and generous. He can be wise. He can be all kinds of things that are positive. He can be compassionate, supportive, all of that. But the other part about the king is he can also be somewhat passive-aggressive. And I think that emotions guide him, and sometimes they're not his greatest friend. You know, he may have trouble with boundaries. Since he's floating on the water, that's one of the things that I see with the king, is sometimes the boundaries are an issue. And he can't really, if you look at this from the standpoint of inner authority, then maybe along with, you know, binding yourself to your own perceptions, or you feeling bound by your own perceptions, perhaps boundaries are also an issue. Okay. Establishing boundaries with other people that are healthy, or are you enabling certain things to happen that shouldn't be happening? Enabling things like you support somebody when you should be maybe giving better counsel, you know. And with the king being an authority figure, that the idea of counseling other people coming to you for advice, is also inherent in that, given the king's status. But I think that in this regard, coupled with the Eight of Swords, I have to wonder if we're really exploring our own boundaries today, and how much we are bound by perceptions that really aren't of a higher perspective. And these are more ego. You see those swords pointing downward into earth. If they were pointing upward, then they would be accessing spirit. But in this regard, they're actually pointed down. They're piercing the sand. And so I have to think that she's bound by her own egoic perceptions, and health, and managing healthy boundaries is probably also an issue. But at some point through the energy of Gebo and conjunctio, balanced exchange with others from a higher perspective, Gebo will then influence conjunctio and the type of unity that you have with other people, collaboration, alignment, whatever you want to call it. And then you come to the 4. In other words, once you can learn to balance those things, both perception and emotions, boundaries and all of that. Once you do that, then you can come to a better understanding here, a better agreement. Here you literally have an X pattern up here. You can't see it per se, but if you could be underneath it or above it, you would see that X pattern, which again aligns with Gebo. The 4 is about structure and foundation and the physical life that we have. Patience, diligence, supportiveness. Here you have two staffs or poles on either side. And I've always interpreted this card as coming into an alignment with someone else in terms of a marriage. But again, that's conjunctio, is it not? You know, some type of unification, some type of harmony. You see the line of demarcation here, so you know, this is you kind of have the now and then, or however you want to see that, but that type of exchange, what was and now is. You could look at it a lot of different ways. You see the castle behind them. Their friends are there. You see an archway here that takes you into their new life, to their new home together. They're holding their bouquets high in the air, and excuse me, in celebration. And they were just here balancing their lives together into one cohesive unit in terms of a marriage. You can look at the 2 poles as the polarity within each individual coming into balanced energy exchange with the garlands above. So expressing Gebo in their lives, a higher level of exchange with one another to where they can start a life together and a future together, bringing new energy into the structure of their own lives from someone else. But you can look at this as the masculine and feminine polarity. Well, this would be feminine and masculine, basically, because you've got left and right. But it's also, you can also think of that in terms of, because people sometimes get confused about that being gender. It's really not. You can look at it as masculine being projective energy and or polarity, and then you have the feminine, which is receptive. And so you're going to be balancing, since swords is an active principle, that would be a masculine or projective type of energy. Cups would be a receptive type of energy. So in a sense, that's what you're doing here. You have to learn to balance the intellect with the emotions, and come up in some way that is not egoic, that is more higher self, more imbued by higher self instead of the ego. Given the passive-aggressive tendencies of the king, I really think that we're exploring perceptions and emotions, and the type of balance that we strike, both within each category and then together. I think that we're exploring how all that is manifesting in our life. You know, are we doing it in a way that we're bound by perceptions that aren't working for us? Are we doing it in a way where we're enabling others? Are we being passive aggressive in our interactions with others? Or are we engaging with others in some kind of a manner that's more Gebo-like, that's balanced energy exchange from a higher perspective, drawing in the light of Kenaz throughout the entire rune? And I just, in case you're new here, let me explode Gebo out. Gebo is the gift, but it's the gift of balanced energy exchange. And so you're looking at Kenaz in all directions, with the individual in the very center of this. So you're essentially expressing the light of spirit in all directions in your interactions with other people, as opposed to the ego. We get really caught up in egoic perception, and we become very reactive, and we cannot understand how we impact other people. We can't understand the truth of what's going on. We give ourselves over to illusion versus clarity and light. And so I think that probably we can put Gebo above the two, the Eight of Swords and the King of Cups, but then I think Conjunctio goes above the Four of Wands, where we really are. I mean, it's just so odd that this turned out this way. Everything's in alignment here. I can't believe this, but it's kind of cool, isn't it? But you see this balance. Each person comes into balanced polarity within, which is what we're trying to do here on either side, and then they come together in balanced energy exchange and in love with one another, in full clarity, in full light. You see the yellow all over the card here. So that's indicative of that light of spirit that's blessing this whole occasion. But they're not giving into ego here. They're coming into an alignment with others. You see, instead of 4 bouquets, see there's not one in this hand. You've got 3 up here. You can think of that in terms of mind, body, spirit balance. There's also 3 arches here. You can barely see the one over here, but there's 3 arches there. So again, mind, body, spirit balance. As they begin their new endeavor together, their new life together, their new conjunctio together. So I think then what this is really telling us is that we need to explore how perceptions can keep us bound to one particular path when maybe it's not the healthiest path to be on, and how it can really influence then the type of emotional connection we have with other people. Are we going to be generous? Are we going to be kind? Are we going to be supportive and compassionate? Or are we going to be passive aggressive in all of that and try to manipulate the situation to our own advantage? And again, you know, that really can connect very well, I think, in with the idea of swords and the air element and intellect. How are we using that? How are we managing our perceptions? Are they realistic? Are they based in justice? Are they based in higher awareness? Or are we simply reacting to everything with the swords piercing the ground? This just suggests ego is involved. And so we've got to get it together here and here so that we can then come into a more effective alignment with others. I mean, here this denotes a wedding, you know, but I mean, it could be any type of joining with others, you know, whether it's in a collaborative effort at work, or whether it's, you know, in your neighborhood, in your family, with your friends, whatever the situation is, whatever collaborative type of experience that you're going to have, you want to be your best self in that, and you want to have that reflecting spirit instead of the impact of ego. Ego can just really take you in a direction that can be quite frightening, really. You can express yourself in ways that are trying to control a situation that you shouldn't have control over. It's always because it's always at the expense of other people involved, right? And so, you know, again, if this is a work situation, we all have to learn to work together in a situation like that. It can't be people that are, you know, having a boss. Like my husband had a job one time where the boss basically pit people against one another in a way that was really unhealthy. He would give certain people more money that were doing the same job as other people, and you'd eventually find out about it, right? And so it created an atmosphere of mistrust amongst the people that worked together, that needed to be collaborating together, that needed to support one another. But instead, see, it was no, I'm going to control everything in the room, and the rest of you can just, you know, just do whatever, but I'm going to control everything. And I have the support of the boss. And there was nothing about those individuals that, in other words, they weren't the stars of the company in any respect. They were people that were very self-centered, very self-motivated, did not have the best interests of the company at heart. So it was unclear why the dynamic was happening to begin with. they were undermining the boss at every turn, basically. But yet, I don't know, was he trying to buy them? I don't know. It was just weird and then when people started to find out, it really put a dampener on the ability of people to even want to be in the same room with one another or to work together, because it's like, well, why bother? You know, if they're going to get all of this and they're not any better than anyone else, and in many ways they're worse, you can't trust those people. Well, what's really going on there? And so it can really be difficult when you have a situation that has got such a lack of balance there. So think about this in terms of, I mean, especially if you think this might apply to a work situation. Is there something going on that in your work situation that reflects this sort of dynamic? It's destructive. If you do, if you're participating in it, you might want to rethink some of that and think about, where are your perceptions coming from? Is it coming from your own agenda, or are you following along with other people that maybe are somewhat self-destructive as well? So what's going on in your life here today that makes you need to reconsider your perceptions, reconsider your emotional boundaries with other people, and so that you can come into a better place where you can have a better exchange, a higher level of an exchange with other people. In the long run, it benefits everyone concerned. Something to think about on these snowy days or weathery days. I guess there's tornadoes too, right? Oh, I mean, it's just, the country's a mess. I guess was it South Dakota or North Dakota? One of the Dakotas I read this morning just got a ton of snow, like 30 inches overnight or something. And I mean, it's April, for crying out loud. You know, we shouldn't have any of this right now. We're always late here on the high desert in terms of flowers coming up, as opposed to, say, over in the valley in the Portland area or Salem or Eugene or someplace like that. Over there, you know, everything's blooming, and if I were to be there right now, my sinuses would be filling. So as I'm looking at all the wonderful flowers that are coming up here, just the daffodils are just starting, and the hyacinths have been coming up, and some of our trees, I think my pear tree was blooming, but the apples haven't started blooming yet, and the apricot is still dormant. I don't know what the heck's going on with that. But there's just, you know, nothing is really growing yet. And now we've got a blanket of snow out there again. So, and my husband can't figure out where the water is because the snow's on the ground. He can't see it. He can't physically see where it is in the pasture. So he's just moving it around, you know, because he doesn't want it to hit our driveway. But so lots of things going on. So, you know, if you're stuck at home and you want to think about something, think about this. Anyway. Thanks for watching, and look forward to the posts coming up on the blog on Saturday night. It'll be the esoteric influences, let's see, the weekly numerology, the ascendant, rays, nodes, and strong planetary aspects. I think I finally settled on a title for that one. And then also the daily correspondence for work and magic. That's also up on the blog. A little more expanded form with some recommendations for what you can do on each day is over on Patreon. If you want to follow me over there, there's a link below the video. Just click on show more, scroll down, and you know, you'll see all the places I am. And let's see. Oh, and the two posts I put up on Medium, they've also been scheduled, so they also come out on Saturday. So so look for all that if you want to. Appreciate you looking at what I write and you know, see if it's helpful to you. I've got something else that I might be putting out, but I don't know if I'm going to. I may think about that a little while longer. Just a little bit of a insight type of a post. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Have a good weekend, and stay warm and be good to yourself. Be good to one another, and blessed be.